Hello everyone on YouTube. If you've joined us already, I started the stream a little early before the conference call. This is Sarah Hines, the Secretary of the Linn County Disability Caucus. Our stream is already live. The conference call is already started with the people who are administrators of it, and they're just trying to learn a few things. As soon as we're ready to go, I'm going to bring in my phone and turn it on speakerphone and then just set it in front of the computer. So what you're really listening to is the conference call, but instead of calling in from a phone, I'm letting you listen to my phone on speaker through YouTube, and we're broadcasting it live. So you won't be able to interact, but you'll be able to hear what we hear. The audio might not be really great quality. Again, it's a speakerphone. I'm probably not going to monitor it very much throughout the broadcast because I have to be in moderating some other things. But I will check into the feed from time to time and see that it's still running. This is the first time we have ever tried this, so if there are major technical difficulties, I might not know how to fix them. But we will give it our best shot, and we're really happy that you're here to join us. So I'll be back in about 5 minutes, and I'll set the call down, and it will go live.
And just take a look and see if we have all of our candidates online, and we may need to give a couple more minutes for folks to be able to join. So we are going to unmute everybody for just a moment. Davis, can you do that?
Doing it right now.
Thanks. As we unmute everybody, it's really important for you to remain silent or mute your phone so that we'll be able to hear as we go through to make sure we've got the people on the call that we need to hear from tonight. So I'll go down through, and I'm just going to do this alphabetically. Sandy Dockendorf.
I'm here.
Derek Eadon.
I'm here.
Mike Gronstal.
Present.
Bob Krause.
Here.
Blair Lawton. Blair. Okay, Kurt Meyer.
Present.
Julie Stauch.
Present.
Kim Weaver.
I am here on the bus on the way back from Davenport.
Okay, great. So I see Blair. Blair, are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great. Okay, so we have everyone. So Davis, if you can go ahead and just mute everyone back again, I'd appreciate it. So I think we'll just got another minute, another full minute, and have other to see if anyone else is going to be logging in. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and start, and I'd like to welcome everybody for attending and taking time out of this evening. I know that we're dealing with some weather issues in northern Iowa and central and a little bit of eastern Iowa, and that event started, I think, a little bit earlier than some folks thought. So I appreciate people going ahead and taking the time to be here tonight. People with disabilities worked tirelessly across the state to get out the vote this year. This cycle was the most accessible yet. However, real work remains if we are to be able to truly engage persons with disabilities and tap into their potential. We need to be able to be flexible and willing to embrace new ways of doing business, which includes embracing technology that increases participation of people with disabilities. We want what everyone else wants, our voices to be heard, to be seen as partners at the decision-making table. We need the tools to be empowered so that we can be more involved in the political process. Technologies such as CART have made it more accessible for us to be able to meet, for example, virtually through conference calls. And while making it more accessible for us, it also makes it more accessible for every one of you out there who doesn't necessarily need this technology, but as several folks have found out, that anything that we do for a person with a disability in order to accommodate them, to make it so that they can participate more, actually does something for everyone. It's not a zero-sum game. So that's the good news. Now, let's talk a little bit about our forum and how we're going to conduct things this evening. I'd like to do it alphabetically, and we are going to rotate through the alphabet so that the first person is not always the first person to have to respond. I have questions that have been brought to my attention by the Disability Caucus that I have formed here tonight. There will be approximately 5 of them. Things have changed a little bit since we now have Bob Krause, who declared late last night that he was interested in running for our IDP chair, and he said this morning he was interested in participating in our forum today. Each one of the 8 participants will have 3 minutes to give an introduction and introductory remarks, and then I will begin with the questions. If there's time, I'll be taking questions as well through email, so if there is time for follow-up, we will allow for that follow-up, and then there will be a 1-minute closing remarks. If we keep on to schedule, that's about 77 minutes, and we've scheduled this for about 90 minutes. We can, if we feel it's necessary, to spend a little bit more time in one area than another, but I want to make sure that we have enough time for every candidate to feel as though they've been able to answer the questions fully. At this time, I would like to put it to Sandy Dockendorf to give her 3-minute introduction.
Hi, am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Awesome. My name is Sandy Dockendorf. Many of you have probably seen me at one convention or another or some Democratic event. Since the election, and actually since the caucuses, I've been crisscrossing the state listening to people, and people are really willing to tell us what they see is at the forefront of their discontent with our party and with the country in general if we are willing to listen. In my discussions with people across the state, I've learned that there's quite a bit of pain and anger and very little hope out where people live. So I live in a rural area of the state, and folks here are pretty much convinced that the Democratic Party is no longer interested in presenting common sense solutions to their everyday problems, which of course is not true. I think our candidates very much are interested in that. It's just they have a hard time getting their message across because we really don't start that messaging until after the primary. And that gives us about 5 months to get a message out. So one of the things I'd like to see us do differently is to become slightly different in the way we present ourselves. I'd like for us to move away from a candidate-centric campaigns towards an issue-oriented advocacy party. And what I mean by that is taking that 18 months, 19 months in the cycle and using that to define for voters who we are as a party and what we stand for. So that's one of the things that I'd like to do a little bit differently. I think our party has to be professional, transparent, forward-thinking, relevant, and also a conduit for the voices of our grassroots. I think that we need to develop a strategic plan that focuses on educating voters, training our volunteers, growing our party. I think that fundraising should be the means to carry out our strategic plan, but it should not necessarily be the strategic plan. I think we need to be smart and fair about how we support our candidates. I don't think that we should limit primaries. I think they're good training grounds. And I think we need a chair that brings us together to face the future together. So that's pretty much what I'm looking about trying to do. We have a lot of work to do, and I'm looking forward to getting started.
Thank you, Sandy. And next up is Derek Eadon.
Like many of you, I've been very frustrated over the last few cycles that we've had here in Iowa. Election night 2016 was a turning point in the direction of this party. And I want to talk about the three things that we need to get back on track on. And I think many of you, as I've been having conversations across the state, feel the same way. First is that we as that party, we're not only lacking a message, but we're lacking passionate messengers that are credible on this issue. We've been too dependent on Washington pollsters and negative TV ads to try and drive this message. And one thing that we've lost sight of in the Democratic Party is talking about our values. What are the shared values that brought all of us into the Democratic Party? The fact that we're all on a call at 6 o'clock on a Saturday. What are those values that we share about giving an equal opportunity for everyone, regardless of where they were born or who they are? And we need to talk about that in a more proactive way. We need to have that passion. And we need to hold the GOP accountable on their lack of giving the same economic opportunity to everybody out there. So I think one of the silver linings of the election results is we finally get to get on calls like this and hear from 8 fantastic candidates on their ideas. And for once, this is not just somebody being appointed to the chair position. We're having to talk about these ideas. I think that's very exciting. I want to talk about how we need to be putting more of an emphasis on organizing. That's my background. I've come up in Iowa through the Iowa Democratic Party. I worked on all 3 of President Obama's winning campaigns and led his 2012 effort where we had record turnout in the state. And I think we've become too dependent on out-of-state help. I think we need to be focusing on the grassroots, giving our county parties the tools they need to be successful, giving our candidates the tools we need to be successful, and not only focusing on organizing, but changing our culture, making sure that we make sure that we are accessible as possible to all folks, whether it's new people, whether it's people that feel they haven't been valued in the party before, whether it's candidates that might be a little bit too intimidated to put their name on a ballot, or a volunteer who isn't sure that they can contribute. Changing that culture, being able to give the grassroots the tools that they need, being able to share best practices, and having a chair who focuses us on full-time, is not interested in a future office, and someone who's willing to travel the state to bring in new people to talk about our values and fight the Republican onslaught that we're going to see, because this is a very crucial time. I think that the chair position here in Iowa will mean more than it has before, and I really appreciate all of you giving us the opportunity to talk about this. Appreciate all the other candidates giving time, and look forward to your questions.
Thank you. And so next, Mike Gronstal.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Just want to be sure. My name's Mike Gronstal. I've been doing this political gig in my life for probably 45 years. And I've seen a lot of different elections, and what often happens is we learn the lesson of the last election, not anticipate what the lessons of the next election are going to be. Next election will not have a presidential race. Obviously, we all want to take a look at the data before we make hard and fast judgments about what happened in this campaign, but I certainly have a pretty strong sense that in lot of elections they do, but in this particular election they weren't. I think the presidential campaign sucked all of the political oxygen out of the room, and people were watching that. How many of you were on a regular basis checking in on 538 website to see what it was looking like? We were all at some level obsessed with that, and I think nationally they were obsessed with that. So I think we've got to take a good hard look at what's going on there. But I think the biggest challenge facing the party isn't the message. I think our message, if people were listening to it, resonated pretty well. We were talking about growing the middle class at the state legislative level. I just don't think people were even listening to that. So I think that, but I still think the biggest issue facing us as a party is the divisions inside the party. And I at some level, am familiar with that because back in 1996, when we went into the minority, after being in control for 14 years, we went into the minority, and the vote to elect me as the minority leader was an 11-10 vote. Our caucus, the Senate caucus in Iowa, was deeply divided, and the job was, my job back then was to get people united, get them kind of all on the same page, pulling in the same direction. I would say to our caucus every single time we met that we had just about no impact on public policy when we were sitting at 21 members, just about zero impact on public policy. And if we wanted to have impact on public policy, we had to be about going out and winning elections. And I persuaded everybody to kind of come together on that. We developed kind of mission-specific messages about investing more in education in the state of Iowa, and things like reducing class sizes and rebuilding crumbling schools. We developed messages on that, and we all kind of got on the same page, and that succeeded in us moving towards the majority. We got the majority back and did a bunch of great things. The biggest challenge we're facing right now is there's still an awful lot of folks that want to fight about the last election, that want to challenge each other on whether it's the Sanders people that are going to be in control of the party or the Hillary folks. If a year from now we're still having those discussions, we're still divided along those lines, any of us that get this job will have failed. So I see job number one as uniting the party, listening to everybody in the party, and taking all of those good ideas and executing them. So that's what I intend to do if I win this.
Thank you very much. Next is Bob Krause.
Hi. Can I hear me?
Speak.
Okay. I'm Bob Krause, and I ran for the last Senate in the Democratic primary. I've got a very strong record on disability issues. When I was in the legislature, I was the guy who created the demand response regional bus system, which is used by a lot of disabled people. I was in the chair of the Iowa House when we passed the handicap parking law back in the 70s. Today, I work with disability issues. Some people call them veterans issues, but if you've got PTSD or traumatic brain injury, you're definitely disabled. And if you've got mental health issues, I work with veterans with mental health issues, you are definitely disabled. I'm sympathetic to the voting needs of the disabled. I think we need to push forward with a plan to create some virtual precincts for persons with disabilities that are homebound, so they have an opportunity to register in the precinct caucuses. I think that I am the compromise candidate. Mike Gronstal said it very well. The biggest issue that we have facing us is the divisions in the party. We need 51% of the vote to win and control the Iowa legislature. The only way we're going to get that is if the Hillary people, the Bernie people work together, we get the blue collar back. And I think that I can do that because I stayed neutral purposely in the build-up to the presidential race, because I knew that we had to hold together. and somebody at the top of the ticket tilting too far one way or another was going to alienate the other side. That's why I made that decision, and it's still the right decision. That's very relevant to what we're doing today. I'd like to do a 99-county tour. I call it a unity campaign, where we have sit-down meetings with the sides, the various factions, and work on developing a unified strategy. I also think that we need to have an issues book for the state legislative candidates and the county candidates early on. That's how I won when I was a young man. I won a primary by 17%. After I got the primary nomination, I went and I had an issues book, and it carried me. I was a young kid that didn't know anything about issues. There was enough in there to give me a sound of a professional candidate, and we need to do that. The van, I think, is hopelessly broken. Some people call it boat builder. Back when I was chair of the Iowa Democratic Veterans Caucus, we had a list John Kerry put together for us of 75,000 veterans. That list was gone when I bought it for my campaign. There were only a couple dozen veterans. They've been stripped out of the system. And what we have is a situation where people that buy the van are encouraged to go off van to work the list. And then those lists become proprietary, and they don't go back into the system. You need to totally redo.
I appreciate it. We need to keep on schedule, so you could just take a second or two to wrap up.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the big one. Those are the big issues that I'm running on. I ask for your support. Bob Krause. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Blair Lawton, please.
Thanks, Catherine, and special thanks for the Disability Caucus for putting this together tonight. For those who haven't met me before, my name is Blair, and I am running for chair. I want to start tonight just by telling you a little bit about myself. Back in 2012, when I was a regional field director with the Obama campaign, ended up meeting my wife, Becky. We've been together ever since. My wife is an accountant in the Cedar Rapids area. We also have a beautiful 16-month-year-old Grace. She's the love of our lives. She's at kind of that fun age where she's walking and then starting to talk and has kind of her own personality. I really consider myself an organizer. I kind of cut my teeth organizing with President Obama's re-election campaign. And since then, I've had the pleasure of also organizing in Minnesota and Alaska. Since I've gotten back to Iowa, I've organized with the Run Warren Run campaign, the Bernie Sanders campaign, and the Iowa Democratic Party. And that's why I'm here tonight. I think we need to make sure that our next state chair brings a lot of organizing tools to the program. We need somebody that has that organizing mentality. My top priority is to make 2017 the year of party building, and I think there's a few ways that we can do that. I think, number one, we need to get back to realizing that our county parties are the bedrock of a strong state party. We need to be decentralizing things out of Des Moines. We need to be out in the field meeting with our county chairs and county parties, getting input from them, figuring out what their goals are and how we can best be a resource to them. Number two, we need to have a renewed focus in rural areas. We do have voters out there that agree with us. We just need to make sure that they're hearing our message. We also need to be, tweaking our message a little bit in rural areas. I think overwhelmingly rural Iowans and urban Iowans agree on a lot of things, but our folks in rural Iowa are also concerned about their schools consolidating. They're concerned about the family farms being replaced by hog confinements, and they're concerned about their main streets being closed up because there aren't enough customers. Number three, we need to get serious about contesting every race across the state. This past cycle, we had 21 state House seats where there wasn't even a Democrat on the ballot. I think both the Truman Fund and the Senate caucus have done a really good job of recruiting and training candidates, but I think there is a place for the state party and the county parties to come in to help with some of that recruitment and training for some of our non-targeted races across the state. I think that'll really help with party building if county parties are able to get people motivated around their local candidates. And I think number four, we need to get back to being a welcoming party where everybody feels like they have a seat at the table. We have a great opportunity every 2 years with a statewide election, whether that's presidential, senatorial, or gubernatorial. Those candidates bring new supporters and new volunteers to the process. But on day one, we need to make sure that we're coming together as a party to keep those folks engaged. And also, we need to make sure that we're spending time in our communities across the state, not just coming out into like the last 1 or 2 months during an election. So we have a great opportunity, I think, with our constituency caucuses to use them as a conduit, between the state party and our various committees to make sure that there's consistent outreach in those areas. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So, Kurt Meyer, please.
Thank you. As we all know, our party has just come off 2 devastating election cycles in a row, and to address this rather depressing situation, we have to act quickly to listen, assess, and incorporate lessons that we've learned from these last 2 cycles. B, we have to outline our plans to chart a different course, and C, we have to enlist and empower the leaders at all levels to help us accomplish our plans. Now, here are 4 of my priorities. First, the new chair must immediately lead the State Central Committee in drafting a new long-term strategic plan that will not be achieved for several cycles, an exercise that I think should be completed within a month of taking office. Then the implementation of this plan is the chair's primary duty, gathering the forces and the resources needed to meet both short and long-range goals. Secondly, rooted in this plan, we have to craft simple, forward-looking messages that capture unifying themes and then can be infused into all of our party programs and activities. Our social media efforts also require a new strategy, clear implementation steps, and appropriate staffing if we're to convey the party's vision and vitality. Third, the party must deploy locally based organizers throughout the state to invest in relationships, to engage individuals that have interest and talent, to fly the flag for the party and eventually for our candidates, and to work with and walk with people in their communities. And the word with is important here rather than for, because it enables us to build capacity when we work with people. These organizers are an essential investment in our future. Fourth, fundraising. Excuse me. This is where I've spent most of my career, helping several hundred organizations, causes, and candidates raise more than $500 million, and here's what I know. Money invariably follows ideas and vision, especially when expressed with conviction. We need to be intentional about expanding our funding base, and I have outlined plans to do so. Now, because our party faces daunting challenges, the next chair must hit the ground running with the skills needed to chart a dynamic new course and to move the party forward quickly. Excuse me. Several items in my background come into play. First, throughout my career, I've been responsible for achieving results, working with and through others, mostly volunteers, who I kept informed, engaged, focused, motivated, and on task. And second, I have worked almost exclusively with and for organizations in transition, which is where the IDP is right now. Throughout my career, I've been responsible for developing, implementing, and securing the significant resources needed for plans aimed at dramatic improvement and growth, and that's where we want to be. Clearly, we've got a lot of work to do, and it's time to get started.
Thank you. Next, Julie Stauch, please.
Good evening. Just to check, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. So, hi, everybody. This is Julie Stauch, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I want to talk with you first about my experience. I have been an activist, a winning campaign manager of several congressional races, and I work with organizations who are implementing change and have quite a bit of experience there as well. I'm the person who published the piece on research piece on people's opinions about where things are after the election. And the most striking thing to me was that there was a tremendous amount of consensus on what the problems are that we face, but there were a lot of problems with people feeling disconnected. And I think it's critical as we move forward that whoever is the chair understands that they're going to have to work on that feeling of disconnection and helping to get people connected. There are 3 main areas that I think the chair always has to focus on, and they're leading in this role. They're not necessarily the person doing all the work, but building the base, recruiting and developing leaders, and in the resource development, which I include in there, both fundraising and data and events that we do. In my experience building the base, I have been an activist at the county level, as I mentioned. I've run 3 congressional races, one in Iowa and 2 in other states. I've worked on 3 different presidential campaigns, and I've worked at Planned Parenthood of the Heartland, where we built our activist base from 3,000 in 3 counties to 33,000 across 52 of the state's counties. And I think there are parallels there to what needs to happen with the party. I think we need to focus a lot on recruiting and leadership development. I think that's been a gap for us, and this is not in terms of necessarily just recruiting the candidates, because I am aware that the House Truman Fund and the Senate Majority Fund work on recruiting the candidates, but we can be laying the groundwork as the party to have people ready to go to step into those roles, and that's something that I want to make a critical focus. And lastly, I would just say that I'm looking forward to any questions you have, whether they are this evening or at another time. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you. Kim Weaver, please.
And as a direct care worker at Village Northwest Unlimited in Sheldon, it's a facility that works with individuals with severe to profound disabilities, such as developmental disabilities, as well as physical challenges and brain injuries. I went from there to be a targeted Medicaid case manager for 10 years, working with individuals with chronic mental illnesses and also helping children with developmental disabilities remain in their homes and help their parents actually receive the supports that they needed so that their children could achieve the maximum benefit that they could. For the last 9 years, I have spent my career working as a long-term care ombudsman, helping individuals in nursing homes, assisted living, and residential care facilities have a voice. I am a solution facilitator, although my job description says that I investigate complaints. Last year, 3 days before the Jefferson Jackson dinner, I ruptured a disc in my back that required back surgery. Following that, I have had chronic pain the entire time and spent the entire campaign battling with chronic pain and, working with, where do I park? How far do I have to walk? And it kind of opened my eyes to a lot of the different challenges. And while my challenges pale in comparison to the challenges that many people meet, it did help me to understand in an even deeper way how, having to park far away could prevent someone from being able to go to a caucus, or not being able to hear in a large venue to prevent somebody from participating. So as your chair, I'm not going to pretend that I know personally or fully understand all of the challenges, but I'm open to suggestions. And when I talked to Catherine, I said, if I forget something or I overlook something, please let me know, because it is completely unintentional, and I want to be able to provide an opportunity for everyone to participate. And I don't want anyone to feel that asking for an accommodation is a burden. I want them to feel that they can come to me, they can come to whoever my executive director is and say, look, I need this or I need that. And we're going to welcome that suggestion with open arms, or we'll say, we'll find it for you. And if you read my white papers, you will find that is part of the funding solutions that I have earmarked money specifically for inclusion. And it's, for cart services, sign language interpreters, ADA accessible facilities. We're Iowa. Senator Harkin was the father of the ADA. We should never question accessibility issues, ever. And, as your state chair, you should feel that you should come to me. And, I could talk about what I'm going to do in the rural counties because that's a primary concern of mine. But I want you to know, as the Disability Caucus, that I will do everything I can to make sure that every opportunity that is open to every other Democrat is also open to anybody with any sort of challenges. And again, while I may not fully understand, I'm open and I'm there to listen, and I will do what I can to make sure that everyone can participate.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you to all of you for those introductions. They were very insightful and informative. And now I'd like to go into asking the questions. As was just brought up, since reasonable accommodations are required under the American with Disabilities Act, and in fact in our IDP Constitution, we say very clearly that all meetings, all events, which include fundraising events, include caucus to convention cycle, and includes being able to participate after the caucus to convention cycle, so that we have a good way and manner to be able to do grassroots party building. So given all of that, these accommodations can run thousands of dollars a year, and so can the costs with additional costs be associated with providing many different types of reasonable accommodations, CART just being one of them. So the first question is going to go to Derek Eadon. How would you go about funding these necessary accommodations?
I think, when you are approaching this position, I think talking about accessibility on all levels, whether it's new people, whether it's folks with disabilities, whether it's folks in the community of color, I think we have to change that culture that we aren't just trying to get by doing the bare minimum of which our Constitution abides by. We're not looking at the ADA as a burden, but we're looking at it as an opportunity to bring more people in. And I think when you are looking at very specific ways, and I think Catherine and folks with the Disability Caucus have done a great job so far with using CART on these calls, we've seen a tangible increase in participation because we've been able to use these tools. So I think using the success that we've seen in tools like this, and being able to share some of those best practices, I think when we're going to donors, when we are going to groups that are concerned about accessibility, being able to provide tangible results on how we've brought more people into the organization because we've made ourselves more accessible, I think would be a very good strategy. And making specific asks of donors that have cared about this issue. We have a great network because of Tom Harkin being a leader on this issue nationally of groups that are familiar with Iowa and how we've been a leader in the ADA. And I think those groups would be a very rich target to go after to see if they could help fund these. But I don't think you have to go after just folks in the disability community or advocates there. I think we have donors across the state that want to make sure that everybody can participate, whether it's the caucuses, whether it's local organizing events, whether it's making sure that our offices are accessible. I believe that if the chair makes this a priority and is specifically fundraising for it, I think that'll be something that we'll see a lot of success from.
Thank you very much, Derek. And I just want to say that we do need, it is only 1 minute for the response, so let's try really hard to stay on to that. So the next person to answer that question is Mike Gronstal.
Thank you. Listen, I will try and be brief. I think I have a proven track record of being able to raise money in significant amounts. I think it's our responsibility. Obviously, this is Tom Harkin's law, and it's all of our law, but we're all proud of the fact that Tom Harkin was the leader that actually got this accomplished. So I'm very much committed to doing that and raising the money that it takes to do it. And like I said, I believe I've got a solid track record of being able to raise money. And I'll stop there. I'll stop there so that we stay on time. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Bob Krause, please.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two sides to the equation. One is the raising of the money. One is to maximize the quality of the outreach. And when you get into rural counties and you get a new county chair every couple of years, they don't know where to go for services. So there has to be a stronger presence on the IDP website about the availability of services. And the Maestro program, I think, can help cut costs with a two-way hookup so that if you have a county fundraiser, if you have somebody staffing the a cell phone and a video setup, you can have maybe a Des Moines-based ASL sign language person or somebody like that who can do the translations, because that is it's a fairly there are not that many of them in rural areas, and that's a big problem when you have a fundraiser and you're trying to accommodate that. There are probably other specific accommodations that can be worked through Maestro. I think it can expand service and reduce costs. My other general comment on fundraising is my plan is to have the...
Okay, so I'm sorry, but it is up. We'll need to go now to Blair Lawton.
Hey, everybody. As I said earlier, my top priority is to make 2017 the year of party building. And I think when we make the party more accessible to everyone, we are going to get more folks involved. I often feel like folks, if they come to an event or come to a volunteer activity and they don't come back, it's either because they weren't made to feel welcome or they weren't asked to come back. You know, I think Catherine's team has done a really good job using some of these tools like the cart system that I'm on tonight. You know, what I would do is definitely, reach out to Catherine and her team and figure out some of the good stories and best practice highlights from folks that use some of these systems, and then go out and share those with donors. I think when we share our vision for the party, people are more likely to give. You know, when we make people feel welcome to the party, they're going to be more likely to give as well. And this is an opportunity by using some of these tools that we can make everyone feel welcome to the party.
Thank you. And Julie, please.
Oh, I thought Kurt would be next.
Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. You are so correct. Thank you. Kurt.
Thank you. I do think that we often grab hold of our first-in-the-nation status, and sometimes perhaps at the expense of our best-in-the-nation status. And I think because of Senator Harkin's leadership over the course of time, we have an opportunity to seize best-in-the-nation status for a state in dealing with accessibility issues and overcoming any barriers that there would be for people with disabilities. I think this is part of the broadening the base strategy that many of us have talked about tonight. I think that it's very encouraging to think that disability engagement in this last cycle is on the rise. Perhaps we need to listen more and understand more why that is, because that's a trend we certainly want to continue. I also think that it's possible to employ technology, as Bob was saying, to make everything as accessible as possible. And lastly, I think that there are certain designated donors that would not only warmly support accessibility and greater accessibility-related funding causes, but that would be giving much more if we pitched it specifically as an issue of broadening our base.
Thank you. Okay, Julie, now you're up.
Okay, thank you. So I honestly agree with everything that everybody has said. It's about fundraising, it's about building the base, and it's an important part of what we have to do. And I think the chair's role becomes facilitating that happening and making sure that people know about it, because I think that we can have resources, and if we don't communicate about them to the world at large, then they're not going to take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you. And Kim?
Thank you. I have specifically earmarked funds in my proposal for the Big Blue Tent Club, and I believe that we need to actually find that money, that it's, just like, I use union printers, we have to make sure that there's no question about our meeting places being ADA accessible. There's just no question. And if the Big Blue Tent Fund does not meet the needs that we need for CART, as well as, sign language interpreters, Braille, ADA accessible facilities, then we need to raise money specifically. But I believe that it needs to be part of our budget and not just reaching out to specific donors and say, hey, will you donate for this? It just has to be a priority, and it's part of our budget. It's part of our normal fundraising abilities, because we need to be the party of inclusion for everyone.
Thank you. Sandy?
I think outreach and accommodation needs to be part of the strategic plan, and I believe that we generally need to increase our small donor asks. And I believe in a team approach to fundraising. I will commit to the call time to fund the entire strategic plan, but I do think that we need to make accommodation just a fundamental part of what we do as a party.
Okay, thank you. So now it's time for the second question. How do you see incorporating persons with disabilities into the political process? And this time we will start with Mike.
I just see that as something Democrats stand for, period. The way to incorporate them is to include them and make the accommodations that are needed to get them involved. We already do that in some ways, but we don't do it enough in terms of the precinct caucuses. So I'm committed to making sure that happens, and I will work on it wholeheartedly. Again, I think this is one of the legacies of Tom Harkin, and it should be a legacy of the Iowa Democratic Party as well.
Thank you. Bob, please.
Well, I think that each caucus needs to pass basically a wish list of legislation, and those wish lists should go directly to the State Central Committee for incorporation into the platform. I think that the party has to look at follow-on lobbying structures, or at least support to do lobbying structures. I think that's a key thing if you want to get in. On candidate recruitment, I think persons with disabilities are very strong candidates because people will emote and relate to them. Those are a couple thoughts that I have.
Thank you. Blair, please.
Hey, everyone. Well, first of all, we should make it so everybody feels like they have a place in this party. I think we have an interesting opportunity with our 10 constituency caucuses that we have. The way I view them is they're really tasked with growing that base and bringing new people in the process. So one thing I would definitely do is sit down with Catherine and her team and figure out what they want to do over the next couple of years to bring more people in, and also chat with her about what resources that do they need from the state party to hit those goals.
Thank you. Kurt, please.
I think a lot of this is going to be rooted in continuing education and training. I think that we have to make people aware at every level of some of the challenges. And unless we're intentional about that happening, then I think that it's likely that we're going to fall back into old patterns that may or may not be all that sensitive to people with disabilities. So I think that one of the things that we're going to have to do is to have continuing education courses for people who are engaged in our party activity, and make sure that we are training those who are in positions of leadership as to how they can be effective in advocacy and in leading the way. So again, if we're going to assume a best-in-the-nation status for persons with disabilities, we've probably got an educational challenge to tackle too.
Thank you. And Julie?
I've always thought of Democrats as the party of the people, and I think one of the things that we're going to have to do in order to help with this, I saw a great example of it this last election cycle, where here in West Des Moines we had a man who is sight impaired, and he was very, very active working in the caucuses, and we had a great team of folks who worked along with him as drivers, and he would go to the door with other canvassers, and he was very effective at canvassing out here in West Des Moines. And I think we have to help people see that it's not just systems we have to change, but we have to be willing to engage in a real way with all of the people who make up the Democratic Party and find meaningful roles, just as we were able to find, as he was able to secure here.
Kim, please.
Sorry, did you say Kim? I didn't hear what you said.
Kim, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So anyway, I hope that this doesn't sound like I'm not taking this seriously, but there's a lot of people that have challenges that aren't visible or apparent. I would want to create an environment where anybody that has a challenge feels free to come to the party and say, look, I need this accommodation, and they don't feel like a burden. I've already been thinking about, if I were to be elected chair, I can't physically stand in one spot for several hours at a time, yet our chair stands at a podium during our meeting. So what will we do? I want to make it second nature that we as a party, we don't even think about, it's like, is this ADA compliant? Do we have contingency plans for individuals with visual challenges? Do we have contingency plans for auditory challenges? I want to be able to have people come to me and say, can I meet this accommodation? And they're like, we'll make it happen. And so that's what I want to do, to be able to make sure that our party is the party of inclusion for everyone, because, somebody could look at me and say, you don't look like you have a disability, but trust me, back pain, chronic back pain is a disability. And so I'm not going to question someone if they come to me, and I want to make sure that anybody working with me, any of the party chairs, all of a sudden they say, is this accessible? What can we do to make sure that everybody can participate? And so that would be what I would do.
Thank you. Andy, please.
I'd hope that as state party chair that I would lead on us being an open and responsive party. There's a lot of new people who want to participate in a lot of different ways. I think we need to rethink some of the structure of the party and find some different roles that allow more people to participate. I've already been working with the Caucus Review Committee. We're looking at an absentee process for the caucuses, specifically for people with physical challenges, and also those with childcare and other needs. So I'm already working on this, but my expectation for the disability caucuses, they keep pushing us on the envelope. The more the caucus helps us to see different ways to improve, the better the entire party will be.
Thank you, Sandy. Derek?
I agree with a lot of what has been said in terms of the education effort. I think one thing that I have done in the past as a best practice is being able to share the opportunities that we've given to folks, whether it's on a volunteer level or a staff level. I think there's some great stories out there about folks with certain disabilities and how they've been able to either take a leadership role in the party or done certain tasks, because I think a lot of people assume if you can't do phone calls or door knock, that maybe you can't participate, and that's definitely not the case. So I think sharing best practices and success stories with county parties, I think, could also be a good step moving forward.
Eric? Now we will move on to our third question, which is, how would you recruit candidates who will fight to support Medicare/Medicaid and mental health parity? Again, we have lots of laws on the books, and we're looking for enforcement and protection. The first person up for this will be Bob Krause. 1 minute, please.
So the first thing I would do is I would sit down with the state legislative leaders and develop a strategy for their session, or at least monitor their thoughts, and try to template that into the issues so that immediately when we start candidate recruitment, I and other people that work on candidate recruitment will have some core issues and directions that we can talk to potential candidates about. It's a lot easier to educate the candidate while they're still thinking about running than when they finally made the decision to run. We'll have the conferences to do that. I think that some volunteers out there, especially on the Medicaid effort, have done a brilliant job. We need to template that and work it into the issues that we need to have it in.
Thank you.
That's it.
Blair, please.
One thing I would try to do is make sure that we really spend 2017 hitting back on any changes that the Republican Party in Iowa might try to change and things like this. Obviously with them now having the Senate, any one of these things, Medicare, Medicaid, mental health, they're all things that they could continually to go after. So I think that's one thing we need to make sure that as a party we're out there. The state chair is going to need to outbid there really being a megaphone to amplify a lot of the things that the Republicans are trying to take away. And then I think also to make sure that we're going to have candidates that are going to lift these up, we need to make sure that we're having a consistent recruitment and training of all of our candidates across the states. One thing I really want to do as a state party, if elected, is making sure that we take the lead as far as training our candidates, especially in the non-targeted areas. So one thing is we can definitely make sure that we're focusing on things that are like issue briefing, so folks know more about these issues when they hit the trail, but also making sure that our candidates are prepared to use resources like Vote Builder, that they know how they can grassroots fundraise, and that they know how they can put things together like campaign plans to be successful on the trail.
Thank you.
Well, there are several issues embedded in your question. One is the recruitment of candidates, and that's when we lift up and really reach out to specific people that we see as being strong on the issues that are central to our party and have been central to where we've been standing for decades. And I think that's certainly important that we convey those priorities when we go about that recruitment. There's also the responding to candidates who more or less come at us and explaining to them, educating them about the importance of certain fundamental issues. And I think that is partly an education process, it's partly a training process to equip them to deal with some of these issues. But I also think that when you're recruiting, you can select those candidates that are specific to the issues that are important to us as a party, and certainly the ones that you touched on, I would say are important to us as a party.
Thank you, Kurt. Julie?
I agree with a lot of what everyone has said here already. The one thing I would add that I haven't heard yet is I would also include working with the allied groups who work with the different programs for persons with disabilities and engage them in the process as well, because that then can help the candidates just to meet people in their area and to strengthen their opportunity to win as well as inform them. So in addition to things the others have said, I would add a focus on the allied groups that we could work with.
Kim?
Thank you. In 2012 and 2014, I was the chair of the Health and Human Services Platform Committee statewide, basically because I was very concerned about Medicare, Medicaid, and supports with individuals with disabilities as well as mental health parity, because I see the issues every single day in my job. As chair, in recruiting candidates and finding out how they support these issues, I would actually sit them down with our platform, because I'm one of the probably few rare birds that actually refers to our platform. I've got a little bit of a platform wonk, but I would want them to, circle things that they agree with, circle things that they don't, because honestly, I believe that Medicare, Medicaid support, and outreach and services and mental health parity are core issues for Democrats. Sure, there's some things that we may not all agree on, such as, legalizing prostitution and making all drugs legal, but supports for Medicare, Medicaid services, and mental health parity, to me, are core beliefs of our party. And so if I were to be recruiting candidates, I would want to look at how they answer on those issues. And if somebody doesn't agree with those things, as a chair, I tend to look at somebody different. And so that's how I look at it. But I come from that social services, mental health, and human services background.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And time is up. So, Sandy, you're next.
I think we have to define our organization so that people know that it exists for a purpose beyond just electing a candidate. An issue-oriented party always has a direction and something for a party to come together to accomplish between election days, and identifying people who will help us becomes easier. Talking about why they should support our candidates becomes easier. And, running for an office becomes a function of identifying why you're better able to affect a needed change. So I'd rather see us focus on the issue and let the candidates explain to the voters how they're going to make that stick in terms of Medicare and Medicaid.
Thank you, Derek.
One of the things I feel very strongly about is creating a candidate development network that not only talks about the training of candidates or anybody who's thinking about running as a candidate on the functions of a campaign, but for future or current candidates or current elected officials, I feel very strongly that we haven't done a good job at sharing best practices or information. You're going to deal with Medicaid, Medicare, mental health, not only at the state level, but many county and municipal levels as well. And there are some counties that are dealing with this and maybe have come up with a good solution. So I think a mentor program where you assign a more experienced elected official to a newer candidate or a newer elected official is helpful. And also having regional meetings where folks can learn a little bit more on policy, either from experts or elected officials that have done this, will be very helpful in educating our folks on this.
Being interviewed on a conference call. So,
thank you, Derek. Mike, please.
Yes. Listen, I have never encountered a problem convincing a Democrat that's either running for office or in office from supporting these programs, whether it's mental health parity, treatment for substance abuse, and all of these kinds of issues. Democrats, this is a core belief. We do not have to persuade our candidates. What we have to do is give them the talking points so that they can reach out beyond just the traditional Democratic constituency and let people know that these things are actually good for everybody. Because when we cover the health care of somebody that would go into the hospital and have no coverage, that becomes bad debt. So we can persuade business and industry in this state. I'm probably the one person on the phone that's actually done that. We got the Republicans in the House, the Republican governor. We forced them to expand Medicaid to 150,000 islands. It's one of my proudest achievements in the legislature.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, so now on to our fourth question. How would you work the state auditor to ensure that laws are enforced regarding voter access and of choosing polling location? And first for this question will be Blair, please.
Thank you. I would make sure that we're with any of this stuff, being as proactive as possible. So I think that's one thing that we could definitely spend this upcoming year, where there aren't necessarily a lot of races in play in 2017, of actually reaching out to our state auditors, making sure, first of all, that they understand what the rules are. And once again, that would be one thing I would really rely on with Catherine and her team. I know they're much more experts on this legislation than I am, but I think that's one thing we need to make sure that folks aren't seeing this as an afterthought. And then I think also, like in much of the same way that, when the party comes in to try to set up campaign offices across the state, we have a good list of things to ensure that they are accessible to everyone. I think that's another thing too, going through with our auditors for that as well before they put those polling locations out, just to make sure that they are as accessible as possible and everyone will have that honor of voting.
Thank you. Kurt, please.
I think it's a wonderful question. Not only do we have to work with the state auditor to ensure that he or she, right now, he understands the importance of access and polling locations, etc. But also, I think we have to reach out to county auditors, because in many cases, those are the people that are going to be overseeing the decision and local levels. And I think that we have an education duty there to point out not only the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. And I think that regardless of party, I think that access to those who may be limited in mobility is something that, generally speaking, both parties can agree upon. And I think that we have to enter this persuasion effort in the spirit of collaboration and cooperation. I think we've done that at the local level in Mitchell County, I know, working with our county auditor, and I think I would have high hopes for being able to do it on the state level, too.
Thank you very much. Julie, please.
Yeah, I think that actually you meant the Secretary of State and then the county auditors, because the state auditor doesn't have anything to do with the election stuff, it's the Secretary of State, and I know that because I worked in that office. So, but I think that a lot of effort has been made to get there by both parties, and I think more can be done. But I think ultimately the county auditor level is the best place for us to work because they're actually going to be much more in control of that decision.
Thank you, Julie. And just for clarification, what I was actually wanting to get at was there's the state auditor, there's the county auditor, so what kind of gets controlled up there at state does affect what happens down below. So just for clarification, I am talking about the whole kit and caboodle there. Thank you. So next, please, Kim.
It's interesting that I actually had this issue come up today. I had a gentleman whose grandparents live in one of my counties. His grandfather is at a nursing home and was told that he was not allowed to vote by absentee, which is absolutely wrong. They said that they had to wait until people came to the facility, and they only had a Republican come there. So I think that, and this honestly is a complaint I will be pursuing, and educating the counties, making sure they understand the rules, sitting down and also educating people with disabilities as well as people in nursing homes because they have mobility issues, that here are your rights, and we will not tolerate this voter suppression, and that, no, these people have these rights to do this, and we will stand up and we will be their voice and we will be loud about it. And I think it's important for us to do that because you do it enough, they're going to realize that they need to follow the rules.
Thank you, Kim. Sandy?
I think we have a pretty good relationship as the state party with the Secretary of State's office. I think we need to maintain and strengthen that. We've been working with them. They've come in and talked to us, the Caucus Review Committee, about some of those issues. Actually, I think it is the city councils and the county board of supervisors that set precinct sites, and my solution to that would be helping to educate our county parties to advocate for this issue. They're going to be the people that know those folks best.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Derek?
Yeah, this is actually something that we've had to deal with the last three cycles, and I think it's multiple-fold. It's putting political pressure and potentially legal pressure on the Secretary of State. Often our current Secretary of State does not intervene when they should because they are on the side of voter suppression when they should not be. So we've seen pressure can be applied at that state level, but as many folks said, it's working with that county auditor. It's trying to identify any problems in sites as quick as we can beforehand, taking an audit of what actually was accessible in 2016 to see if it needs to be changed for 2017 elections, and then putting political pressure and potentially legal pressure there. This is something that's very clear in the Iowa Code, and we have not had problems in the past when we actually escalate the issue, but it's something we need to be vigilant on, especially with Republicans that are going to go after more and more of our voting rights moving forward.
Thank you, Derek. Mike?
Derek's absolutely right. This is an issue. It's pretty clear in the code what's required, whether it's going to nursing homes and those kinds of situations, or making voting places accessible. So all of that is really pretty well established. It takes legal pressure on them if they won't engage in it. We should be taking them to court.
Thank you, Bob. Please.
Well, first off, I agree with Sandy that I think the county parties could be easily surveyed for problem precincts, and then we'd have a statewide database of any that there were problems with, and then go from there. Work with the county auditor first, and then work up the channel. I think on the nursing home issue, we need to have a nice pamphlet or a nice website or something where we can educate our own people as to what's going on, and the requirements to have two people in there and also the option to vote. I had a personal experience with my father, similar. Ultimately, he got voted, but it was the last vote before he died, so it's very important to me.
Thank you very much.
That's all I have.
Thank you. So our next question is, what is your position on funding or supporting all of the caucuses? Because if you support one, you have to support them all in their activities as far as grassroots organizing and so party building, getting out the vote, getting started, getting going from administration throughout the life cycle of those caucuses. And we will start that question with Kurt, please.
I think it's an important question, and I think it's one that we need to wrestle with as a party. I think that we need to challenge the caucuses to come up with their plans for what they intend to do over the course of the next election cycle and what they need resource help to for them to accomplish. And there may be caucuses that have a significant financial need, maybe 3, 4, 7, 9 times that of the caucus that's right before them in the alphabet, or reporting right after them. We have to get some handle on how we're allocating those resources. I agree that if we say we're going to fund the plans of one, we're going to have to fund the plans of others. We have more than enough places to tuck our funds. I would be looking closely at what we can do to broaden our appeal, broaden our base, and certainly that's what we need to be funding. And yet, we would all say we have certain priorities, and priorities mean that they probably get the first opportunity for funding. These decisions have consequences. I would look very closely at funding our caucuses once they turn in a plan that says how they're going to help operationalize our priorities as a party.
Thank you, Julie.
Yes, this is the question that when we spoke the other day, Catherine, that I got all confused on, because I thought when you were talking caucuses, you meant the Iowa caucuses for the presidential races, when in fact you were referring to the 12 caucuses of the Iowa Democratic Party Central Committee. And I make that distinction just because in case somebody else got lost down that path with me. I think that we do need to have goals, and obviously self-generated goals from the people in the different state central committee caucus groups, and then we look at how we can best support them in prioritizing what they need, and then how do we make this all work in a general part of the planning process.
Thank you very much. Kim, please.
Thank you. I'm going to refer again back to my proposals, what I'm calling the Big Blue Tent Club, which is $27 a month. And part of that line item is for inclusion, but there's also a line item for the constituency caucuses, because I believe that we have underutilized the caucuses and that they are a huge strength for us. And so my goal would be to have an actual budget for the caucuses, and that they would determine how they're using the money. So it might be rental for a meeting, it might be, flyers, it might be mailers, whatever it is, we're going to have a line item in that club that will be going to them.
Thank you, Kim. Sandy?
Well, as many of you know, I've been a champion of the constituency caucuses as long as I've been in the party, and have worked hard to untether them from being tied just to the state convention. I gladly work with each of them to maximize their outreach, and with all of them to work together. But I think the party's responsibility should be in supporting the convention and the workshop each year, and then helping them to achieve their goals once they've identified their goals in each 2-year cycle.
Thank you, Derek.
I agree with a lot that has been said. Specifically, I think Kurt's idea of developing some of, helping with each of the caucuses, developing a plan, and then helping them meet that plan is important. I also know that how far along some of these caucuses are varies. Skill level of some folks in the caucuses varies. And since I think there's a tremendous upside to these caucuses, So the chair and with state party staff working with folks on if they need to do some professional development, if they need help in writing a budget or a plan, seeing examples from other caucuses on how to set metrics that you're going to hold yourself accountable to, can all be things that are added into this process. Because I think if we know what a successful 2017 looks like for each of these caucuses, then I think it will be a very good year for the party.
Thank you, Derek. Mike?
Derek, I apologize. I'm going to say I think you're right on the money. Helping these individual caucuses get technical assistance, I think that's incredibly important. And I'd also say I think it's important to say to each of these caucuses that this programming and this fundraising and the things they need to do, that's kind of everybody's responsibility. And so we should challenge them back to help raise money as well for their own efforts, maybe some sorts of challenge grants for them. But the most important thing, I think, is getting them the technical assistance, and that's the kind of thing that the party can provide to each of these. It's the same issue that tenant parties have in terms of how to run campaigns, helping with technical assistance, getting them in the right place so that they can go out and win campaigns, and all of that involves fundraising, and fundraising is everybody's job, not just the state chair's job. It's everybody's job.
Thank you. Bob, please.
Yeah, Bob Krause here. I think I ran a caucus, and I ran a caucus when I first became active. There weren't very many active caucuses then. I think, and we tried to do fundraising. We ran into those technical problems. I think that we should have a dedicated statewide fundraiser that showcases the caucuses. This would be in addition to some of the other fundraisers at a statewide level, but that money would be dedicated as a resource to hire staff, to build the vans, to get the outreach and get it into the system so that we can get those votes and harvest those assets.
Thank you. Blair, please.
If elected, I would like to sit down with each caucus and work with them on putting together a 2-year plan. I think it's important to sit down with each caucus and figure out what their goals are and what resources they need to accomplish this. And also, I think we should be empowering people at all levels to fundraise. I think that includes county parties, candidates, constituency caucuses, all the way up to state chair. Really, all levels of the party should have a stake in fundraising. We need to be doing things like consistent trainings on how to grassroots fundraising and share best practices of good ideas that are currently happening across the state. I know we've especially got even some rural county chairs that are doing fantastic with their party of grassroots fundraising. We should be asking those folks to be coming in to help with trainings and talking about what works well in their area. And on top of that, I would be interested in looking into bringing back Harkin grants. I think that's another way we could have constituency caucuses put their plans together and apply for some of those grants that would help with some of the bigger costs that they need to hit their goals.
Okay, so I think that does it. I appreciate everybody's participation this evening, and I'm hoping that the folks who were on the call also were able to glean some information to assist us really in making a good decision. I'd like to now give each one of the candidates 1 minute to make their closing statement, and we will start with Julie.
Well, thank you very much for the chance to be a part of this call tonight, and thanks to you, Catherine, for facilitating it. I think that one of the top priorities for our party is building our base, and as the party of the people, that means everybody from every caucus group, and even those that we don't have as caucus groups right now. And so I appreciate hearing the different perspectives tonight, and I look forward to more conversations with all of you in this process that we're going through right now. I also hope that you'll be paying attention next week when we give our speeches about what we would do as chair, and I think there's an opportunity there for you to pick up on some other ideas and understand just sort of the kind of thinking that we're all putting into this. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Kim, please.
Thank you. I'm not a Democrat because of a blind affiliation to a party. I'm a Democrat because the values that I hold in the deepest part of my soul are the values that we as Democrats hold. I have spent my entire career helping people find their voice. I have spent my entire career advocating for people who didn't feel that they had power. And I have often said that what I do isn't just what I do, it's who I am. And I believe that that's who we are as Democrats. We are the ones who stand up for people who maybe don't feel that they have power. We are the ones who help facilitate them finding their power. And as your party chair, I would hope that I could help everyone feel empowered to have a voice and to stand up for what they want. And that is why I want to be your chair.
Thank you, Kim. Sandy?
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with the Disability Caucus tonight. I've served at the precinct, county, district, and state level for the Iowa Democratic Party since 1992. As county chair, I know how frustrating the coordinated campaign model can be, and I believe that our county chairs should be provided the training to be our field organizers instead of buying them, so that we can get back to building our party on the front lines throughout the year. As district chair, I know that our organization is not being used effectively or efficiently, and more training for candidates and candidate staff and campaign staff could be provided. In my role as state rules chair, I've stressed candidate neutrality, providing information to all candidate organizations equally and impartially. I know the rules that guide our party and the state laws and national bylaws on which those rules are based. I'm one of the people currently working to simplify and open the caucus process. I have the job skills and experience for this job. I've coordinated nonprofit boards, and I've been the president of my local school board 6 of the last 8 years. More than that, I've worked with social service, juvenile justice, education, and faith organizations to develop and provide needed resources for critical programs in my community, including training child care providers to give them the knowledge and tools to care for special needs kids. This is something that I'm really
thank you, Sandy. I
believe in.
Thank you. Derek.
Well, thank you so much for letting me take time tonight to talk about this important issue. I think these different caucuses that have been formed are one of the most positive things that come out of this election cycle, because we have a very tough road ahead of us. I think the strength of our party will be measured by how many new people we bring into this process, how we treat each other with respect moving forward, how we can unify against the Republicans that will overreach, and we'll be able to show our values to a lot of folks. So I think these caucuses are important. I think having this conversation, while it's important, is only a first step in this process, and I look forward to not only working with all of you on these issues moving forward, but these other caucuses, because I think they have a tremendous upside, and we can have a very solid 2017 if we invest in these caucuses.
Thank you, Derek. Mike, please.
I think we have an incredible opportunity in 2018 to pick up a whole bunch of seats in the legislature, but I think coming up to 2018, we need to work to make sure we are getting people for school boards and for city councils. Those are the elections that occur this year, and I think that is the seeds of success in the future. I think if next year, a year from now, we are still fighting over which faction controls the Iowa Democratic Party, I think we're in a bad place. I think I've got a record of bringing people together, get them on a mission, all on the same page, and succeeding in campaigns. So I look forward to that opportunity. I ask for your support.
Thank you, Mike. Bob?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the listeners. I think this has really been educational, not only for me, but for everyone else here. I'm very sympathetic to the caucus system as a whole, and in particular to the people with disabilities. I think that some of the key things we need to look at are some kind of a virtual precinct system. We need to look at a fundraiser system for the caucuses generally, and we need to develop a support system that will focus them to harvest activists and votes. Thank you for your support. You can see my videos and my statements at Krause for Iowa's Future on Facebook, or you can see everybody's on Leading Heartland, which is www.leadingheartland.org.
everyone. Thanks so much for having me on the call tonight. This has been a really productive conference call. Let's make sure that we keep this conversation going. I'm very reachable on phone. You guys have my permission to call or text at any time. Really happy to answer questions. So did want to take a second to pass out my phone number. That's the best way to contact me. I'm at area code 605-212-5084. Once again, 605-212-5084. I think it's really important that we make sure that the next state chair has an organizer mentality that can help build the party. We need to get back to making sure we know that our counties are our bedrock of a strong state party. We need a renewed focus in rural areas. We need to get serious about contesting every legislative race. And we need to make sure that everyone is made to feel welcome to this party. So let's work together and make sure that 2017 is the year of party building. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Blair. Kurt?
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, members of the Disability Caucus, and of course also thank you, colleagues. Many good ideas surfaced this evening. Let me close with an analogy. The Iowa Democratic Party now finds itself in choppy waters, about to enter an even more challenging series of rapids. In this analogy, I offer the following. I know these waters. I have traveled this river many times before. I have studied the maps and know how to navigate these rapids. I am fully prepared for this assignment, knowing that we dramatically increase the likelihood of our success with tested, proven, innovative leadership at the helm. Leadership matters, and so does practical experience. Same old is not going to get us where we want to go. I think Iowa Democrats are ready, and so am I. So let's get going.
Thank you very much. And again, I would like to thank all of our IDP Chair candidates. This is really turning out to be quite the most transparent race that we've had, and your flexibility and willingness to participate in this forum in this manner is very much appreciated. We know how hard that each one of you are working, and we look forward to hearing more from you. To everyone there out here, just a couple of brief announcements. The first one is we have our website now up and going. It is idpdc.com. idpdc.com. Now, this is our first launching of the website, and so we're encouraging folks to go take a look at it. It is going to continue to be tweaked a little bit as we go along, and we are certainly looking for input and feedback. Additionally, we have a YouTube channel that just launched, and it can be found under IDP Disability Caucus. IDP Disability Caucus. We will be looking for avenues that we can have cart on our YouTube audio streaming as well. And I want to give a special thank you to Sarah Hines and to Holly Brown for their tireless efforts in the last couple of weeks in this last push to get our technology up and going, and to Ruth Thompson for her never-ending support and her social media acumen and skills in being able to navigate those waters as well. We will be sending out a Survey Monkey to ask those participants on this call how they felt that the call was handled and if there are any other improvements. And we will also be sending out a Survey Monkey to find out what participants would like to see for our very next meeting, which we hold on a monthly basis. So once again, I would just like to reach out to everybody and say thank you for participating, and have a very good evening.
For anyone that joined us out there on YouTube, we apologize. We heard it didn't work quite the way we wanted. May had to do with bandwidths on the internet we were using. So it didn't quite work, but it was our first attempt. Thanks for trying and logging on, and we hope that next time we do a live event that we will have better luck. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining.